The Commission of Bishops' Conference of the European Community show us an example of the necessity of the connection between civil society in general and governments. My presentation aims to show, beyond the diversity of the situation of each country, how this kind of connection can contribute to the state's important role in promoting religious liberty and minority rights with due regard for the common good. The topic of my presentation is recognition of the proximity of spiritual values in international law. I will focus. I led the paper for PowerPoint, yes.
Okay. Did you give it to my colleague, or?
Yes, recognition of. I have already done.
Okay. Can you get Esteban? Esteban? Okay. Maybe if you could begin, and then hopefully he'll come in a second.
Okay. I continue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Possibly.
Okay. The plan. I will focus my analysis on two main points. First, articulation of the initiative of the civil society in general and the ones of the state. And the second point, the promotion of positive peace to underline the negative peace control from the state without the contribution of the civil society. Freedom of liberty of religion is a political principle that the states have to transpose in their positive law. From this point of view, it is understandable that in the framework of the spirit of Assisi, the Assisi Decalogue for Peace, precisely in its Article 10, the participants undertake to require the leaders of the nations to make all possible efforts so that at the national, international level, a word of solidarity and peace based on justice be constructed and strengthened. Internal law, the practice of the state having a long experience in that field, show that the opposability in the field of freedom of religion towards human dignity and security suppose two requirements, namely the requirements of minimum service in recognizing the religious and the requirement of public order to prevent uncontrolled and uncontrollable ailment for causing prejudices. In international law, the approach is remarkable, considering the nature of international society itself. It follows another logic. Indeed, considering the state of insecurity and violence, there is not really other answer than common responsibility, and this also supposes a common platform. Pope Benedict XVI was therefore right when he was saying to the president of the religious communities in Turkey in 2006, I quote, "Christians and Muslims, in following their respective religions, insist on the truth of the sacred nature of and the dignity of the person. This is the basis of our mutual respect and esteem. This is the basis for our collaboration towards peace between the nations and the people, the generous wish of all the believers and all persons showing goodwill." End of quotation. In this respect, it appears judicious to research the proximity of spiritual values in the several initiatives in process at the level of the international society. This proximity goes through two approaches: promotion of peace and construction of the rule of law. The study on the recognition of the proximity of spiritual values in international law provides the advantage of setting the point of crystallization of a corpus of standards in the field of peace building and rule of law, contributing to the evolution of political culture with an articulation of the initiatives of the global society, I mean civil society, and that of the supreme political powers, the government, as well as strengthening the legal realism. Next slide. Articulation of the initiative by the global community and supreme political powers. First, the state appear to be the only fully recognized entities. This is to say, until the establishment of the League of Nations. Since that period, other competitive actors have emerged, interstate organizations and non-governmental organizations. And this is meant for the happiness of the humanity due to the inescapable complementarity between the global society and the supreme political powers. The international non-governmental organizations have an history which at least date back 1839, and the vital role of the non-governmental organization and other major groups in the sustainable development has been recognized in Chapter 27 of Action 21, leading to the intensification of the consultative relations between the UN and the non-governmental organization. Two elements enable to understand the necessity of the articulation of the initiative by the global society, civil society, and the supreme political powers, the states. These are the role consisting in relying the global community through the spirit of Assisi in Italy, and the limits of the initiative by the supreme political powers through the paradigm of negative peace control. Next slide. Global community as unifier of the whole humanity on the way towards peace. On Sunday, November 18 of 2001, before reciting the Angelus prayer from the window of his flat in Vatican, Pope John Paul II, as a unifier of humanity after the attacks of September 11, mentioned the international situation, the victims of the terrorism, taking into account the attempts to get religion back from ideological purpose. He invited the representative of religious community in the world to go to Assisi in Italy on January 24, 2002, to pray with a view to overcoming opposition and promoting authentic peace. The issue was to get the whole humanity on the way towards peace in the spirit of Assisi. The spirit of Assisi is an expression invented by John Paul II himself on the occasion of the first Interfaith Meeting for Peace, which was held in October 27, 1986 at Assisi in Italy. In 2007, while celebrating the 8th century, 800 years of the conversion of St. Francis, Benedict XVI in turn gave a definition of such a spirit. Assisi tells us that, I quote, Assisi tells us that loyalty to one's own religion beliefs, loyalty especially to crucified and risen Christ, does not express itself through violence and intolerance, but through a sincere respect of the other in dialogue, through an announcement which calls for freedom and reason in the commitment to peace and for reconciliation. End of quotation. During a meeting at Assisi in 2002, all the participants, feeling like members of the same human family, succeed in expressing such aspiration through a decalogue, convinced that if hatred is meant for destruction, love, on the contrary, leads to construction. This document, the Decalogue of Assisi for Peace, this document expressing a common commitment towards peace, has been provided by the Holy See to the head of state and government. Religious leaders nearby show that it is up to them to indicate the way to follow. My wish is that religious non-governmental organizations carry on the work through their plea for peace on the model of the International Red Cross in the international humanitarian law. Next slide. B. Limit of the initiative by supreme political powers. The initiative taken by the state have three limits in the way of peace. They adopt the paradigm of negative peace control. They place the defense of national interest above the construction of rule of law, and they do not militate in favor of the effectiveness of the rights of the minorities. Next slide. Promotion of positive peace. In December 2005, the Security Council and the General Assembly of the United Nations Organization jointly adopted a resolution on the creation of the Commission for Consolidation of Peace, CCP. The process of institutionalization of CCP has been painstaking, and the functioning of this young institution can still show that. But what is to be welcomed is that the establishment of the Commission calls for the mobilization on the part of the United Nations system. Indeed, the resolution on the establishment of CCP underlines the need for a coordinated, coherent, and integrated approach. In this respect, the Commission functions like a forum which enables to revive the relationship sometimes broken off between the government, the intergovernment institution, and the civil society, in order not to come back again to the former CCP system. The actors will better adopt a network approach, namely strengthening the legal realism in place of the realpolitik. The International or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights really provides an example thereof. Next slide. What is strengthening legal realism? The paradox of the legal realism consists in taking realpolitik on the wrong foot for the following reasons. The globalization imposed a more relational interpretation of the international phenomena. The more the prescriptive rule tightens, the more the exit costs are likely to increase for those who will not play the game. The issue is not to passionately go into the standard to increase the opportunities of the law influence. We have an example. In my country, UNESCO organized an international symposium in Benin, my country. And this symposium, the participants to this meeting adopt the so-called Cotonou Declaration in 12 points, which specifies, among others, that it is advisable to encourage in each African country the creation of a national council from the very initiative of the different religions' domination, so as to promote a framework of exchange, information, meetings, and formulation of principles which are to guide interfaith dialogue in this respect. Let us welcome the establishment since May 25 of 2007 of the Concerted Action Framework for Benin Religious Dominations. This declaration seeks to remain in the logic of strengthening legal realism. Next slide, please. The case of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted by the UN General Assembly 10th of December 1948, was the result of the experience of the Second World War. The Commission on Human Rights was made up of 18 members from various political, cultural, and religious backgrounds. The core principles of human rights first set out in this document, such as universality, interdependence and indivisibility, equality and non-discrimination, and that human rights simultaneously entail both rights and obligations from duty bearers and rights owners, have been reiterated in numerous international human rights conventions, declarations, and resolutions. Today, all United Nations member states have ratified at least one of the 9 core international human rights treaties, and 80% have ratified 4 or more, giving concrete expression to the universality of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and international human rights. To conclude, considering the foregoing, we can keep in mind that the recognition of the proximity of spiritual values provide a platform for interfaith dialogue for the purpose of its contribution to the expression of the principle of freedom freedoms of religion in positive law. These values can be referred to as peace and rule of law, the latter having as consequence democracy and secularity of dialogue. Considered from a cultural diplomacy point of view, its goal is to convince other believers and use their positive influence, which is built up over the long term, as a sort of goodwill reserve to win support for policies. In an operational way, this will contribute to the evolution of a political culture and the democratic conception of international law. This means that the civil society and the believers can and must contribute to the state's important role in promoting and protecting religious liberty and minorities' rights with due regard for the common good. I thank you.